Hello, my name's Ally Sherrick and I'm a time tunneler. I want you to imagine that you've come to Britain to make a new life for yourself. You get a job, you find a home, you make new friends, you meet someone, get married and have a family, and everything's going very well until suddenly your country and Britain are at war. And you go from being an ordinary citizen to someone that's known as an enemy alien, and you're rounded up and taken off to an internment camp many miles from home. Now, I knew this sort of thing had gone on in the Second World War because I was researching my own wartime story, The Buried Crown. But what I didn't realise was that it also happened in the First World War too. And many of the internees during the First World War were sent to an island in the middle of the Irish Sea called the Isle of Man. And it was on a recent visit there to a very special place called Knockaloe that I found out more. Knockaloe was originally a military training camp, but it was converted by the British government into an internment camp in September 1914. And initially it took civilians who were Germans or from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, those that were considered to perhaps be the greatest risk to the security of Britain. But then in May 1915, something dreadful happened. The giant passenger liner, the Lusitania, was struck by a torpedo from a German submarine off the coast of Ireland, and it sank with the loss of 1,000 people's lives. Now, this caused huge outrage in Britain, and it led to anti-German riots in cities like Liverpool and London. And the government decided that it needed to step up its enemy alien programme, and it ordered that all male civilians of German and Austro-Hungarian origin should be rounded up and sent to internment camps if they were between the age of 17 and 55, so those that were suitable for military service. Anyone older than that would be sent back to their country of origin. And the government looked at Knockaloe as the prime site to build an even bigger internment camp. And very soon it opened and was able to take up to 23,000 people. So what was life like at Knockaloe camp? Well, the men were accommodated in sleeping huts. They also had access to kitchens, toilets, bathhouses and recreation areas. There was a railway linking the camp to the main town for supplies, and there were hospitals as well. They were guarded by guards, and there were civilian workers at the site as well, which helped with the day-to-day running of the camp. Every morning they got up at 6:30 in the morning, they had breakfast, there were inspections of the huts, there were roll calls, there was lunch and there was dinner. But it was a very difficult life, as you can imagine, because the men were very far away from home and from their loved ones and their family. They were allowed to get letters and to receive small parcels, but of course these were censored to check that people weren't trying to smuggle things or secret messages in. They were also allowed to write up to 2 times a week, but only on 1 sheet of paper each time. And they got very bored as well, because there wasn't really much to do in the early days. And very soon all sorts of industries were springing up in the camp. Men were making all kinds of things like baskets and pipes and clothes and boots, and men were undertaking gardening and growing vegetables, and this really helped with their mental health. And there were a range of entertainments which they devised for themselves. So they set up theatre groups, and they provided musical entertainment, and there were sporting facilities as well. They were able to play football and tennis and skittles, and all these things helped to keep their spirits up. The end of the war finally came in November 1918. But it wasn't actually until October 1919 that the last of the internees left Knockaloe camp. The camp was dismantled and returned to farmland, and today it's used as a site for a big agricultural show on the Isle of Man. But what of the internees? What happened to them? Well, sad to say that the majority of them were actually sent back to their country of origin, and many of them never saw their wives and their families again. Now, for this week's writing challenge, I want you to imagine that you have been shipped off to a camp like Knockaloe, far from your family and friends. And I want you to write a letter to them, to tell them about what it was like when you first arrived there. What sort of accommodation are you going to be living in? Who might the other people be in your hut? What sort of food are you given? What are the guards like? And what sort of things are you going to do to alleviate the boredom? Also, have you thought about whether you'd want to escape or not? Well, if you have, don't put that in your letter, because don't forget, the censors will be reading it. Happy writing!